So now we've taken a look at single step operations, and now we're going to take a look at multi-step operations, which we just touched on the last example, where we had to kind of come up with X, where we had two different steps that we needed to get rid of. Now to isolate the X value, we need to start by removing the terms which do not contain X, or do not contain the variable that we're trying to solve for, using adding and subtracting. Now, technically, the first thing that we should be doing is to combine all of our like terms. Often I will just have, often there will only be one term of each, and so we're not really combining like terms, but what we're doing is we're removing the constant to come up to get our variable a little bit more by itself. Okay. Now, combine, like I said, we combine like terms whenever possible. Simplify the equation. And really it makes it a lot easier to come up with our final answer when we have simplified ahead of time instead of simplifying at the end. Now to solve for the variable, we then remove the value which is being multiplied or divided. And that will then isolate our variable. And again, the main goal that we're looking for is to want to isolate our variable. Let's take a look at this very first one that we have here. We have d over 2 minus 6 equals 3. Well, we just have a constant on the left-hand side here, and we always want to try to get rid of that constant whenever possible. Okay, so if there's a constant there, that's the first thing we need to get rid of. And so to get rid of that constant, we need to add 6 to both sides. Okay, what it's going to do is it's actually going to be combining like terms. It's going to be combining our constants. We have a constant on the left-hand side and on the right, and so we're combining those two terms together, which we'll get into more detail later on. But we're combining like terms to try to make things simpler. Okay? And again, the goal is always to make it simpler, and the end goal is to isolate our variable. In this case here, we're given the variable d, so we're going to be using the variable d. So we got d over 2 is equal to, because we got rid of that 6, 3 plus 6, which is 9. Okay, so we got rid of that 6 there. We've simplified a little bit. We've combined the like terms on the right-hand side. The next thing that we need to do is we need to get rid of now that 2. So our second step is to go for this 2 here. And to do that, we need to multiply this side by 2, and we need to multiply this side by 2. Okay, so that's our next step in solving. And when we do that, we're going to cancel out the 2's, and we're going to get d all by itself. And the other side, we have an operation that we can do, 9 times 2, and we know that that can be simplified to 18. Therefore, our final answer needs to be 18. Okay, so d is equal to 18. So in this case here, we have 2 steps that we have to do. First thing that we need to do was to add. Second thing that we need to do was to multiply. Now, some will have 2 steps, some will have more than that, but we could have 1, 2, or however many steps I feel like putting into a question. So get ready for that 100-step question. It's not coming, don't worry. We're not going to go that deep. The next one here, we have 8u minus 3 is equal to 29. Again, we have this number which is being subtracted. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get rid of it on the left-hand side and move it to the right-hand side by doing the opposite operation. Again, the key is always to be doing the opposite operation to what is given. When we do this opposite operation, we're going to be left with 8u on this side, and now 29 plus 3 is 32. Now we're down to a single operation that needs to be done, and so this should look familiar to what we have seen in the past, okay, or we've done in other questions. And so now to get u all by itself, we need to divide both sides by 8, divide this side by 8, and when we finish that, okay, the 8's are going to cancel, which is going to get rid of those 8's, and u is going to be all by itself there. And on this side, 32 divided by 8 is just 4. rid of that. And so our answer is that u is equal to 4. Therefore, u is our value that fits in here to get 29 on this side. Just like on this side, 18 fit in for D to get the 3 on this side here. Questions 4 and 5 can be done. Make sure, again, get rid of the adding and subtracting term first. Get rid of that term first. Move it to the other side, because then you'll be left with just 2 individual terms, and that will make things a whole lot easier when it's all said and done.